The Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show is sponsored by Accunet Mortgage, an equal housing lender, NMLS ID 255368, and Accunet Realty Advisors, which is a separate company from but still affiliated with Accunet Mortgage.
Putting a roof over your head without the headache. Get answers to all of your home buying questions. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And our Sunday best to you. Welcome to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. I'm Steve Kettlear, along with Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors owner and president Brian Wickert and licensed millennial loan consultant David Wickert. As always, if you have a question or a comment, you can give us a call at 414-799-1620 or throughout the Midwest on the Accunet Mortgage toll-free talk line. That number is 1-800-877-1620. So we got the September jobs report numbers to go through. We have September home sale numbers and data. Got an interesting show here.
We are just full of interesting information, or at least we hope so. And, the reason why we care about that jobs report so much is twofold. One, it tends to have an impact on mortgage rates. And, that's why I tune in every first Friday to CNBC to watch Hampton Pearson tell us what the unemployment rate is.
That's a great first name, by the way.
Hampton. Yeah, it is. He's the only guy that I know named Hampton.
Yes.
Anyway, here are the highlights. There were 156,000 new jobs that were created in the month of September. That's 20,000 fewer jobs than the consensus forecast. Private payrolls increased 167,000. How can that be, David, millennial? You got this answer in our practice session.
I did. It means that government was shedding jobs.
That's right. The government shed 11,000 jobs, so that's how you can have private payrolls up and more than the overall number. The unemployment rate increased from 4.9 to 5%. How? Economics professor David Wickert, how can you have the unemployment rate go up when I just told you we added 156,000?
Because it's a measurement of how many people are participating in the jobs market.
That's right. Good job.
I appreciate these softballs.
Well, isn't he doing a good job there, Steve? I mean, you guys are brilliant. But, yeah, there were more people that came off the sidelines because, remember, the way that you get counted in America as unemployed is you have to say that you've been actively looking for a job in the past 4 weeks. So if you were on the sideline, discouraged, and then you came off the sideline and said, you know what, I heard the job market's good, I'm going to go look for a job.
Yes.
All of a sudden, that increases the number of people who are looking and therefore the percentage. All right, when is the last time, I did not prep David on this, so Steve, you can get in on this. I'll give you $1 if you get the answer right. When was the last time the unemployment rate was this low? 5% in the September preceding a presidential election. Steve, over to you for $1.
Let's go with just the last election, 2012.
Okay, 2012.
I was going to say 1996.
Oh.
Clinton versus Bob Dole.
Bob Dole.
Bob Dole.
And the answer is 2000. George W. George W. Bush versus
Mr. Internet,
Al Gore. Right. That's the last time it was at 5%. And that's going all the way back to 1968. That's kind of incredible.
Okay.
So, I mean, the unemployment rate's really low. By the way, there are 7.9 million Americans who are actively looking for work right now. That's out of a complete labor force, total labor force of 160 million. The number that I'm most in favor of memorizing and paying attention to are the number of people who are actually working. In other words, paying that payroll tax, chipping in there on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those entitlement programs.
Yes.
And that number is up to, I didn't do the complete research on this, but it's 152 million.
That's a lot of people.
Which, according to the household survey, is 3 million more than a year ago, which is, not necessarily an accurate number, but it's a good trend line.
Yeah.
Here's another interesting thing. The average hourly work week was up slightly to 34.4 hours. That's because, remember, that includes part-time workers plus your full-time workers. And average annual earnings, this is good, and, well, it's good for the economy. It's not good if you want the Federal Reserve to stand pat on interest rates. So this is a data point that's going to fuel the chances of the Fed raising rates. Average hourly earnings were up 2.6%. All right, and that average annual paid amount in America is now $25. So if you do the math on that, David, is it $51,000 the average pay for an American according to the household survey, or is it $46,000 or $41,000?
He says 25-ish an hour.
$25 an hour on a 34.4 hour.
Okay. The 46. If it
46,
was 40 hours
right.
a week, it'd be closer to that 50 number.
You are correct. Yeah, 2,080 hours in a work year.
Yeah.
All right, so 46,000 is the average. And by the way, though, manufacturing is up 40.7 hours per week if you're working in manufacturing with 3.3 hours of overtime. So overall, it was good enough to keep the Fed on track. David, we'll tease this. What's the percentage chance now that the Federal Reserve is going to raise rates in December, and what happened to mortgage rates after the numbers came out on Friday? We'll give you those quick answers when we come back, and then we'll get into the top outdoor remodeling features.
That can definitely return investment on your property and maybe even make it a little bit more saleable. You're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Getting you into the home of your dreams. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Well, as the Bucks continue their preseason, head coach Jason Kidd is working to see what pieces fit into his Greek freak-led offense. Justin Garcia will check in with the voice of the Bucks, Ted Davis, on Sports Central. That's Monday night at 6:15. You're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ. With us is Brian Wickert and David Wickert.
So we had a not-so-hot jobs report, but it was good enough to, I think, keep the pressure on the Federal Reserve to raise rates, not at their November meeting right before the election, but rather at their December meeting. David, what are the odds currently according to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group or the CME Group?
Yeah, so there's 60% odds that they'll raise rates just 25 basis points, a quarter percent. There's actually a portion of people, 5% of people actually think that they're going to raise them 50 basis points.
Oh, okay. So
I don't know who those people
small
are, but
odds. They're betting on that. All right. So just a reminder, if they do that, then everybody's home equity line of credit that's tied to prime will see their rate increase in January, and we are seeing a fair amount of that where people are carrying a balance on their home equity line. You know, now it's in the 4s.
Yep.
Because most people are at prime plus a half, which is currently 4%, or maybe at prime plus 1. So it makes sense to put that together when you can get a 30-year fixed or a 15 or a 20-year with a rate that starts with a 3. All right, David, speaking of that, so what happened to mortgage rates after the nothing?
They're just
big fat.
Everyone's just getting ready for December, basically.
Okay, and so where are we? Where did we end the week?
Yeah, so at the end of the week, with all the right stuff, 25% equity, 740 qualifying FICO score, escrowing for taxes on a $200,000 balance, Accunet could deliver 3.5% on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. That's with an APR of 3.52 with just $400 in closing costs.
Ooh.
Is there a processing fee in there?
There's no processing fee, no underwriting fee,
paper shuffling fee,
no junk fee,
Super Bowl fee,
no nothing like that.
But my personal favorite is the no closing cost option. So that'd be 3.625% on a 30-year fixed. APR is the same.
Why do you prefer that?
It's not about my preference, but I just like showing that in conversations with people. Because on that example, the difference in the monthly payment is exactly $14 a month.
All right. Well, it just depends on how long you're going to stay in the house.
I know.
We can
But
do
that's
the
just
math.
me. But if you're the type of person who wants to pay your loan off faster, 15-year fixed 2.875 APRs 2.9 again with just $400 in closing costs. So.
All right. And remember, we can customize your loan term any number of years between 10 and 30. The rate's the same if you're between 21 and 30 years.
Yeah.
Then generally speaking, the rate on a 20-year fixed rate is about 1/8% less. How much of that are you doing right now, David? Are people customizing the rate term?
We talk about it. You actually had an example of this on someone who was, I'm going to say, 3 years into their loan, and if they went back out to 30, they'd still save like $200 a month.
Right.
And so it just, maybe they could use that money to stock away for kids' college.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay,
and
I remember.
So you can do the comparison.
Yep.
And it's just, it's not that we're agnostic, but it's just to say, here are your choices.
Wow, big word, agnostic. That's good.
But it's to present, because there's no wrong answer. It's just what makes someone most comfortable. If they want better monthly cash flow or they want to pay their loan off faster, great. We can lay out all those options side by side.
We can do that. All right, let's turn the corner and start talking about the top 10 outdoor features that are most appealing to home buyers. This is according to a research study done by the National Association of Realtors, of which I am a card-carrying member. Pay my dues every year. And I'm just going to give you the top 3, and then we're going to come back and tell you what they meant by this. So this is rankings by realtors across the country. They had about 5,000 realtors in the survey. They ranked in the number 1 appeal to home buyers, a standard lawn care program. I had to read the details on that. Number 2 was an overall landscape upgrade, and number 3 was a new patio. We'll tell you a little bit more about what they meant by those projects and how much you can expect to recoup when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Find a place to call home without the headache. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Well, with a couple of preseason games under the Bucs' belt, what can be learned about the squad up to this point? Is there still a trade to be made before the regular season tips off? Justin Garcia examines that and more on Wisconsin Sports Weekend coming up at 3:35 this afternoon. You're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on WTMJ with Brian Wickert and David Wickert. We're talking about some of the outdoor features or improvements or remodel jobs that you can do that will improve your saleability or the value of your home?
Correct. And this is according to a survey done by the National Association of Realtors. They surveyed both realtors, and then they put out information to some association of landscape professionals to get the price quotes. So the number 1 thing, according to the realtors, to attract a buyer is a standard lawn care program. I'm like, what do they mean by that? Well, they meant to perform a standard lawn care program of 6 applications of fertilizer and weed control on a 5,000 square foot lawn. In other words, call Brett Ochtenhagen at Seasonal Services.
Yeah.
There's a show on Saturdays. I think now they moved it to noon or thereabouts. And get your lawn greened up. Nobody wants to drive up and see a weedy brown lawn. Correct. All right. By the way, the landscape professionals think the cost estimate of that is $330, and the realtors say you'll get $1,000 back. Where else can you get a 300% return on investment?
Plus, people will actually want to walk up and look at your house.
Correct. All right. The number 2, an overall landscape upgrade, which, according to the survey, means installing a front walkway of natural flagstone, 3 feet wide and 30 feet long, add 2 stone planters, 6 feet long and 2 feet wide, and install 5 flowering shrubs and 1 deciduous, not a conifer, 1 deciduous 15-foot tall tree mulched with landscaping bark. The cost of that, $4,750, and the realtors think you'll get $5,000 back on that, so it's 100% return on investment. Again, what's the category here? Curb appeal.
Yes.
Right? Make your place look beautiful when you walk in. All right, in the 3rd spot, I think we're moving to the back of the house now, a new patio. According to the specs here, it would cost $6,400, and the realtors think you get $6,500 back by either putting in a new or improved patio. Okay. That's 102% return on investment. A wood deck is number 4 on the list of cool things you can do to your house. Cost $9,400. Return on investment $10,000. David, do you have a comment on the wood patio?
Okay. This is all just very interesting.
Then in the number 5 position is what they call the softscape upgrade, and this includes installing 5 trees, not specified between conifer or deciduous.
Not 4, not 6.
Not 5. 5. 25 shrubs, 60 perennials, natural edging, meaning a boulder accent, assuming no grading is required and no irrigation system is installed. Okay. Cost of $7,000, and the realtors think you'll get 100% return on that investment. The others, you got sod and seeding the lawn. I really don't know what they mean by that. When you get down to the bottom here, the things that don't get you a decent bang on your buck, an outdoor fire pit, where you're talking about a gas burner and a 10-foot diameter flagstone patio. So it's not just the fire pit. It's putting something underneath it.
So you can sit around it.
Correct. $4,500. They think they'll get $3,500 back on that. So that might be something where somebody goes, ooh, look at the cool fire pit.
Okay.
It's better than
it doesn't detract from the value of the house.
So not horrible. Then actually putting in a full fireplace is a little dicier, $13,300. This is a installed veneered masonry stone gas starter for wood burning chimney, 2 wood boxes on the side, and a wood mantle. Okay,
sounds fancy.
$13,300 for the cost. You get $8,000 back, so that's only a 60% return on investment. And in 10th place, a pool, an outdoor pool, $50,000 for the typical cost. And the realtors estimate that you get $25,000 back. All right, so there's your list of top 10 outdoor features in terms of buyer appeal. David?
This is the absolute perfect segue into our next segment talking about appraised values. Because all the things you just said, you know what? They're great investments. But we can't count your nice fireplace in the value of your home when we go to appraise your property.
For a refinance.
Correct.
In particular, you're not going to see a line item for awesome outdoor fireplace. Okay, we'll cover that. How appraisals differ between when you're doing a refi and a purchase when we come back from the news break.
You're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ. It's now 10:30 as we head over to the WTMJ 24-hour newsroom and an update with Colleen Boland.
Thank you, Steve. Police in Milwaukee are investigating a pair of dead.
Getting you through the home buying process. Welcome back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And licensed millennial loan consultant David Wickert with us as well. So now we're up to appraisals and what matters and how things might be different when you're looking at an appraisal for a refi versus a purchase.
Yes, and this, I guess, was spurred by some low appraisals we had this week, which, as my colleague Drew put, sometimes when you get a low appraisal, it's kind of like calling someone's kid ugly.
Not good.
Not fun. And I think our loan consultants do a great job of allowing people the emotional air to be frustrated with low appraisals sometimes. And one of the things that we highlight is that there is or can be a difference between what your home might appraise for when you're purchasing the house versus when you're refinancing the house. And let the record show, the only true measurement of what your home is worth is if you put it on the market and fielded some offers
and actually closed
on this. So that's so an appraisal is a calculation of numbers and relevant sales and recent sales.
Correct.
Trying to come up with what your home might be worth.
The appraisers have a rules of evidence. They just can't pull stuff out of their left ear.
Right.
They have to use homes that actually sold that are similar as possible to yours in the last year. And what surprises, especially first-time home buyers, David?
Well, it's the when an appraiser gets the copy of the contract.
What?
They get a copy of the contract. They can see what you've agreed to buy the house for.
Oh, and that's similar to when we do a refinance. We can tell them what?
No. So in a refinance, at least in 2016, mortgage guys are basically not allowed to be friends with appraisers.
Can we tell them what we think
we cannot whisper. We cannot whisper what we think a home.
Can the homeowner blather? I really think my house is worth $400,000 because
if you did, I'm pretty sure the appraiser would raise his hand and be like, "I have to leave now because you've kind of poisoned the well."
Right.
On that appraisal. So there can be this large gap sometimes between the purchase appraised value because they're kind of already got the ballpark of what the home is worth because you have a buyer and a seller who have agreed to transact on this property.
Last time I checked, that's the definition of value.
Yes, it is. But on a refinance, because you cannot communicate what you think the value might be, we are stuck with what your neighbors have recently sold for. And so things like it's great that you put $25,000 into your pool or fire pit or whatever that might be.
How's about this one? I just put in all new windows, and it cost me $20,000. How come I don't see an item on the appraisal for the new $20,000 window?
Because it's the three things that influence appraised values on refinances are number of rooms, number of bathrooms, and square footage.
Yeah, mainly bedrooms and bathrooms.
Yeah.
And square footage. And
right.
I'm looking at one right now because I had one where the underwriter who reviewed the appraisal kind of complained that, the comparables that the appraiser used really were quite dissimilar in terms of square footage. And check this out. This particular house that we're trying to refinance has a completely exposed lower level.
Yes.
That's 1,400 square feet. And it is beautiful. I looked at the pictures. It is not your schlocky job that my dad did with the cheap paneling, when I was growing up.
Yep.
This is as good a finish as it was on the first floor. Well, he only gets $10 a square foot for that finished square footage below grade, whereas the other house that he's being compared to has that same square footage above grade, adjusting at $40 a square foot. So you really get hammered on basement remodeling in particular. So the takeaway is that purchases are different than refis.
Yes.
We're sorry when the appraisals come in lower than you think they should be, but we don't get to tell the appraisers how to do their job under Dodd-Frank. And, our job is to make sure they're not absolutely crazy, which they're usually not.
Yep.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that your house is going to appraise for what you think it should.
And thankfully, our loan consultants are pretty good at coming up with a plan B.
That's right.
If things come in low.
All right, when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about September home sales in the 5-county metro area. Were they up? Were they down? How's inventory going? And which markets are the fastest selling when we come back?
Here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 TMJ. If you have a question, you can reach us with Brian Wickert or David Wickert at 414-799-1620 or throughout the Midwest on the Accunet toll-free talk line. That number is 1-800-877-1620.
Helping you find a place to call home. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Which of Milwaukee's founding fathers would you most like to have dinner with? Or against whom would you least want to play a game of sheep's head with? Milwaukee historian John Gerda reflects on some of the city's more colorful history during this week's edition of WTMJ Conversations. That show comes our way at 11:07 this morning. We are with Brian Wickert and David Wickert, the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Hour here on WTMJ. And Jeff from Fond du Lac has a question about appraisals based on what we were just talking about.
Yeah, hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Just a question for you. We're in the process of going through the financing of constructing a new home, which is a fun process. We finally got to the point where we had the appraisal come back, and if I can just throw out maybe some general numbers.
Sure.
The total we purchased the land cash for $18,000. It's hard to say exactly what it's worth, but that's what we bought it for.
How long ago? That's important.
Sorry?
How long ago did you buy it?
About 2 months ago.
Okay, so the one thing just to note is that the appraiser is going to use that number. If
Yep.
you bought a piece of property, dirt, to build a house on, it's the lower of the purchase price or the appraised value if you bought the property in the last year. If it had been longer than a year ago, then the appraiser can use the fair market value. All right, so go ahead. So we're stuck with the $18,000.
Yeah, so we have that, and then the cost of the actual build itself, which came back at roughly $251.
Okay, so we're capped. I'm going to tell you the highest it can appraise out for is the total of those two numbers, which is $269.
Right. So the appraisal came back. The appraisal came back low. We got a call from the bank who reported that the appraisal came back much lower than was expected.
How low?
It came back at about $259. So we didn't have the equity necessary for the construction loan. And part of that was due to the comparables that were used.
Right.
We were told that there was not adequate inventory for comparables in the area, and they would not expand the search area for comparables. I guess my question boils down to how far out do appraisals go when they can't find something?
Well, in a rural area, so it sounds like you're in a rural area, correct? You're not in the city. They can go as far as, I've seen them 25 miles, but then it starts to, the appraiser has to make the argument, why is 25 miles away okay? Is it really still the same market? And here's a hard thing, Jeff, about appraising. The appraiser has to use the best evidence that they have available. So if you've gotten a copy of the appraisal, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you got to look at that and say, well, how many comparable sales were there? And, how good were those comps? And what we'd all like to be able to do is say, hey, there's this one on the same street that sold for $255, but I want you to ignore that one and use this one that's 10 miles away that sold for $300 or something like that. But the appraiser cannot ignore, overlook, leave off the report, what the mortgage industry would consider to be good comps. So I guess it's really a tough job when you're in a more rural area because the pool of evidence is just smaller. Mm-hmm. So I guess the only two things I can think of is, can you go back to your builder and somehow find a way to shave $10,000 off this project without hating it?
Right, and actually I guess the odd thing is that I without representing the bank, I called the appraiser directly and asked, what's going on with this. And about 2 weeks later, we received a revised appraisal with the same comparables, and it appraised out.
Oh, so he raised the value.
Yes. The price per square foot drastically changed. I don't know how
on his adjustments. Huh.
It was adjusted. So luckily we got to that equity that we needed.
Okay. Wow, that's rare. You had a really nice appraiser there. That he didn't hang up on.
I mean, I don't want to take credit for doing it, but I don't know if sometimes that helps to ask questions about.
Sure. You know what? I think if you do it in a nice way, because appraisers are people too, and frankly, we've had this happen where the appraiser gets an accepted offer to purchase, so on an existing home, and they didn't get the most recent one. Let's say that people agreed at $250, but then there was a counter offer that was missing that the appraiser just didn't notice that took it up to $255. And all of a sudden they just hit the number that they had, $250, and then we go, oh wait, you didn't see this, that it was actually like $255 in the end.
A difficult job because you're kind of blindly determining whether somebody can build.
Right, and it's there is evidence, I'm looking at these closed sales, but then there's also human judgment involved as well. So I'm glad that it turned out okay for you. Good job by you, and good luck on finishing up the construction. Thanks for calling into the show today.
Thank you.
When we come back from this last break in the show, we're going to quickly review the September home sale numbers in the 5-county Milwaukee area when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Don't break the bank to get into a house. Back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And licensed millennial loan consultant David Wickert with us as well. So we're talking about September home sale numbers here for Southeast Wisconsin.
To be introduced as the licensed baby boomer loan consultant. That's my request. All right, you go.
All right, I'll go. A boomer consultant here. All right, so in September, there were 6.1% more buyers and sellers. There were 1,592 single-family detached home sales in September. So that's good. Very healthy market. And here's the better news, though. We had 1,930 people list their homes for sale. So that means there's more inventory. 332 more homes for sale right now than at the end of September. So that's good news for home buyers. And by the way, now is a great time to be out there shopping for a home because there aren't as many buyers. As we kind of come down into fall, there's a natural drop-off. Last October, just as a comparison, there were only 1,377 home sales, and then it gets down to 1,000 in November. So you got less competition if you're a buyer.
Everyone's watching Packer games on Sunday.
I think that's right. That's right, especially right now. Well, David and I are going to the Packer game, Steve. We're kind of excited about that. And I think we can cover the spread of 6.5 points. Just by the way, I'm taking the Packers.
Call your bookie. All right, keep going.
That's right. So that's one bit of good news there is inventory is continuing to build up a little bit. All right, what about the hottest segments in the market? Well, from a price range standpoint, if you're selling and buying in the 170 to 180 price range, that was going like hotcakes. Remember, we measure number of sales divided by inventory, and if we're under 3, that's definitely a seller's market. So that was a 2.7. Even hotter than that was the 200 to 225,000 price range, where we now had a 2.3 month supply. 225 to 250 is 2.7 month supply, and 250 to 275 is 2.4. So I'm going to say that if you're in that 200 to 275 price range shopping, you better have your Accunet Mortgage rock solid, fully verified, and guaranteed pre-approval attached to your offer so that your sellers know that you are the real McCoy. And remember, we will pay the seller and the buyer $1,000 each if we cannot make good on the pre-approval letter that we have written.
Yes. That's
to show the seller that you are good for it. Make yourself the next best thing to a cash buyer. All right, so that's that deal. And as usual, if you pop above 450, if you're 450 to 500, the supply and demand is 6 months. Once you get over 500, it gets ugly. 7.7 month supply, so you're going to be waiting a while to get your accepted offer if you're a seller and you kind of have your pick of the litter.
Can I just draw a parallel to that longer inventory or wait time informs how appraisals at higher values can be more difficult as well, because there's just fewer big houses.
That's right. That have made it to the winner's circle. Luckily, they can go back over a whole year.
Okay.
So that helps a lot. They just don't have to look at the last month. All right. In terms of fastest selling markets right now, counting that down in the taking less than 2 months to get an accepted offer and having at least 10 sales in September, we have Slinger and Greendale at 1.9. Greendale, by the way, was number 1 last month. But they're still in the top 10. My hometown, Muskego, Wisconsin, 1.8 months. Oak Creek, 1.7, along with Greenfield and the town of Vernon. Waukesha, the city of Waukesha itself, is the 5th fastest selling, only taking 1.5 months to get an accepted offer. St. Francis at 1.3. New Berlin at 1.3 months to get an accepted offer. Glendale at 1.2, and in the number 1 spot for September, Germantown.
G-Town. Wow.
Selling in less than a month.
Wow.
27 days from listing to getting that accepted offer. So that is your hot to trot. The average, by the way, is still 2.6 months. So call it 75 days between the day you put the for sale sign in the ground and you get that accepted offer. That can seem like forever. Slowest selling markets right now, in September anyway, where I live, Merton. That must just have, I keep saying that, an outlier. 6 months. Richfield, 5 months. Burlington, 4 months. Town of Norway.
Mequon? What?
Yeah, Mequon has always been kind of slow.
Really?
3.6. I think it's, guess what? Higher home prices.
Oh.
See?
Okay.
So if you kind of look at these, Merton, we're out here in Lake Country. That's probably contributing that. We could drill down on that sometime when we have spare time.
Milwaukee is on that list? Really? Okay.
Again, did I mention higher home prices?
Okay.
That's the correlation here, I think, is you get those other ones we were talking about. They're more in the meat of it, between 200 and 300, selling like hotcakes. Okay. All right, so what did we learn during today's show, David? That the unemployment report and the jobs report did nothing to help interest rates.
Yeah, the Fed is still on the warpath for raising rates.
Raising rates in December. We had a dip in rates a couple of weeks ago, kind of that relief rally after the last Fed meeting when they did nothing. Whew. Now we're starting to creep back up.
Yep.
There's nothing on the horizon that I see that, economic-wise, we don't have another Brexit. Maybe you could argue the election. I don't know what would happen which way or the other that would cause rates to drop, but we're kind of creeping up. So now's the time. I don't see any reason to wait. You don't have to have the rate drop for that full percent. It can be as little as 0.25%. and it's also a really good time to go out there and buy a house. All right, that's all we have time for today. Click on the blue button at Accunet.com if you want to get started with a refi checkup, no Social Security numbers required, or if you want to become a home buyer yet this year or next year, get started now. That's ACCUNET.com. We'll see you next week, Steve.
You got it. And coming up here after the news with Colleen Boland, our WTMJ Conversation Show. You've been listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
The preceding was a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show are solely that of the hosts or guests of Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors and not WTMJ Radio or Scripps Media Incorporated.